go. And welcome into This Life Matters. You're in here with Dru and GG. I'm Dru, and of course, this is GG. How you doing today, GG?
I'm doing really well and glad to see you.
Glad
Glad
to,
to be with our listeners.
yeah, glad to see you too. So it's the time difference is such a weird thing to make the adjustment to because when people tell me like, "Hey, let's talk" or let's do something, I
Uh-huh.
always have to remember they don't mean my time; they mean their time. Like my sister in Georgia, it's even worse for us because she could say, "Well, I'm gonna call you at 9:30," and she means 6:30. Or so it's
Right.
that's going to be something we've got to get used to. But that's the cost that I have to pay when I'm pursuing a dream.
That's right. And I've been thinking a lot about our subject matter over the last week about dreaming and getting out our dreams and what those are. And am I a dreamer? And what is my dream? I've been thinking all about that. How about you?
Yes, I put a lot of thought into it, and I think I've allowed the show this week to be a great motivational source for me. Like last week's show was one that really resonated with me. That I've got to get my dreams out there. I've got to continue to journey toward my goals and just have a positive attitude. I think sometimes it's having a motivated attitude that's better than anything. And so talking about it is a beginning step, but it's such a motivational step, especially when you've always kind of thought maybe you wouldn't accomplish a goal or you couldn't be a dreamer. And so realizing that you live in your dream has helped me uh, enjoy my dream even more.
Mm.
So
One of the things about that thinking that you can't, that negative thought that we have about I can't do something is coming out of that place in us that is based in fear
yeah.
and fear of what is possible, fear of what we could reach. And so thinking about that, those negative feelings are coming out of that fear based part of us. I'm wondering about some of the thoughts that we might have that encourage us to stay in that place of fear instead of the place of loving ourselves enough to pursue our dreams. And one of them I thought about was if I say my dream out loud, then is somebody going to say it's dumb or silly or that I couldn't reach that dream? So it's fear of not just our own inadequacies, but fear of what other people are going to say about our dream.
Yeah, that fear of rejection is such a big thing. It's such a large like it cripples you. It's such a big kryptonite for a lot of Superman out there. It's one of those things for me. I think it had a lot to do with pride in me recognizing where I viewed myself in relation to the reality of my dreams. Like, so in other words, I viewed myself as a person who couldn't take insults. I couldn't take rejection. I could potentially dish it out, but I didn't want to bring it in. And then I had to make a mature decision as I assessed that. Is that the proper place to be as a grown man? Is that the proper place to be as a person who wants to go to the next level? It will hurt my feelings. People may laugh. People may say this, that, or another. I'm not going to die. That's one.
Right.
Two, I definitely, I will grow from it. And a mature person will always make the adjustments. And that's one of the key things for me is will I make the adjustment? If they say, well, you know what, man, your face is too shiny, or your head's too shiny this show. Well, I powder up the next show, because you know, when I was growing up, and I'm not going to go into a story or anything, but there was a church song that I remember our choir would sing in it, and I'm not going to sing it obviously, but it was a it was a lyric that said, if we never had any rain, then we would never grow. And I realized that that's why I have to start saying some of the silliest dreams out loud. Some of the things that don't make sense, but they completely make faith. Like, you've got to say it. And I would say, as a living witness to everyone, so what? You will survive. They will laugh at you and you won't actually die.
Mhm.
I don't have the statistics to back it, but I don't think one person has ever died of embarrassment in all reality.
That's true. That's very true. We never want someone to say we're a loser.
Yeah,
And that's what it could feel like to somebody who has expressed this dream, and especially big dreams, big dreams. Those are harder to take if that rejection of that our deepest desires. Because if we put ourselves out there, then we may get that kind of rejection. So then, that brings a question: who are we going to surround ourselves with? Who are what, my daughter Sarah says, I want to have adders in my life and not subtractors. So
right.
who are those adders that we're going to have around us that would encourage us to uh, dig deep and figure out the dreams, how we want to live our lives, what do we want to do next, what do we want to do after that, and support us in those kind of thoughts. And then along the same lines, are we going to be that kind of a person to somebody else?
Yeah. And I think that's the key factor, is making the decision to say that, you know what, I'm going to be I'm going to be supportive to someone else, because I, not for the selfish reason, not as selfish as this is going to sound, but the truth of the matter is, you can't succeed unless you help someone else. Um, we have to view it as not so much as a ladder of success as a chain of success. Like, you have to link up with other people in order to become something strong. Um, you can't just step over everyone else, you know, in order to get to where you're going to go.
If I have this belief, and a lot of people think, I believe they think this, some people do, that if we have an intention, which is what we're talking about, this secret desire maybe that we have inside us that we haven't expressed, but we have an intention, we can have it within ourselves, but then we also can put it out into the world that this is our desire, this is our intention, that we want to have this come about in the future. And so we put it out there. And so I'm wondering, when we put it out there, and if this has happened to you, because I can tell you it certainly has happened to me. If we put our intention out there in the world, then are there circumstances and opportunities and people, uh, things that come into our life that we didn't expect, we hadn't planned on, serendipitously come into our presence, that help move us to the next step to reach the ultimate dream?
Yeah. For me, that's been my whole life. Like, as far as, I think that there's always been situations and people. I may sound like a broken record, but when you make a choice to live your life, to help others, to be with others, you'll find yourself with a consistent stream of people motivating you to the next level, or bringing you to that next level, and allowing you to be in a situation where you're gonna succeed and you're gonna make it, because of the partnership of love. So, because you're, I don't know if that quite answers the question, but I think that's what I kind of took from what you were saying.
Yeah, I think, and the more we put our intention out there, and the more other people do, and we recognize that's what it is, and then, sometimes we could be in situations where we have a thought and we're kind of scared to say it maybe to somebody. But if we said what it was a positive remark, it would really make a difference in how they then could take the next step. That
Yeah.
happened to me just this week, actually. Um, you know, after our first show, and then the next weekend, the last weekend, I went to a retreat, a 2-day retreat, and um, got lots of positive. I didn't put out my deepest desire as far as what, well, for instance, for what our show, what I want for our show, which is one of my top um, goals or dreams for what I want to have happen. And so I wasn't talking about that, but being around people who support and give positive regard and positive statements to you, it 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 makes it where you'd not necessarily want to be around people that don't do that. And then if you're doing the same thing for other people, then and they're doing it for you, those are the people that you're going to surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that this week I had someone in my office, and uh, we were talking about something along these lines. And I was asked, "Well, what is your big dream?" And I stated it out loud. And this person said, "That's totally possible. I
Yeah.
mean, that is totally
Yeah.
possible. And there's things that you can do to make that happen right away. And here's some of the things." It was amazing the kind of give and take two people can have when you're in that kind of a positive conversation and really let your ideas out. And there's somebody who's actually saying, "You can do that."
Yeah. And I think we would be surprised sometimes the amount of people who believe that your dreams are possible. And the main reason they believe that they're possible is because of you. It has nothing to do with, if I said this same dream, they may tell me, "No, I don't see that." But because it's you and it's because of how special you are, they see that that's totally possible. Often, I've stated different dreams that I've had, and people said, "Okay, well, you, that's underneath you. That's you're beyond being able to accomplish something that small." And so, where it was a big dream in my mind, they were so motivated toward seeing. I mean, they saw me in such a light that it motivated me towards seeing myself the way they see me. And
Hmm.
I think that's one of the big things. Is like, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself the way other people see you, from the positive end of things, or do you see yourself the way you fear people see you in the negative? Because sometimes people don't really see us as bad as we think they do. Um, and we live in that fear, and we'll act as though we're that person. And the truth of the matter is, we're not. Like, for a long time, I took on the role of a person who was immature, like, or I took on the role a little bit too long sometimes, I felt like, of being the youthful person with no wisdom about things, because it was safe and it was easy. And as I stepped back from that role, I realized the people around me were like, "No, you're a source of wisdom for us. You're someone we look to for advice." And it was weird because I didn't, even though in my mind I was trapped into this box, but everyone else was like, "No, that's not who you are." So,
Well, you know, when we don't do that, what you're talking about, is stepping forward and living our life is in that part of us that's not fear based, then it hinders other people as well. And sometimes I guess we don't want to do that because we don't want to have that responsibility
yeah.
of moving forward, and because of the fear that we're not going to succeed, and so we don't take the responsibility because it's easier sometimes.
And one of the things we have to be careful with that is the unfortunate saying that people's perception is their reality of you. And if you don't step forward in due time, people will begin to think that that is your attitude, that you don't want the responsibility. You don't want to be, you do not want to reach your full potential, that you're comfortable where you are. And they will treat you accordingly to that. Um, we've seen society do that as a whole to, from one society to a next. We've seen uh, cultural from one culture to the next, I should say. We've seen groups of people say, well, that group of people seem to want to stay there, so let's treat them as though they want to stay there. And it's just how we are as humans. So be very careful and make sure you break out of that mode and start acting as though you want to be who you are.
Yeah, I tell my counseling students, um, you know, if you want to be seen as somebody that's professional and that is worth the amount of money that you're being paid, then you need to look like that too.
Yeah.
You need to dress like that. You need to um, present yourself in a way that is professional because people want you to be professional. They don't want you coming. In fact, I may offend some people. I don't know, and I don't care. But my husband was in a dental office the other day. When he went back, he said, "What percentage of your clients that come in here, your patients, wear pajama pants?" And they said the girls in the office said, "Oh, about 30%." Uh, wait a minute. You know, you're out in public wearing this old T-shirt and these pajama pants and some slippers, and what does that look like? Okay, that's the way. And I'm not saying that we are what we dress. I don't mean that, but
Right.
the perception of people is that you're a slob.
Hmm.
You don't care enough to put some regular clothes on and some shoes on, comb your hair, and go out in public. I mean, that's just the reality of the world. I mean, people do get that first impression about you. And also, what we're saying is if we don't give the intent out there, our intention, and say what our dream is, and have that as a goal, then we're not, nobody's going to look at us like we have a goal or a dream.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to look like, going to that point, back to that point, is you have to look the part. And I feel like looking the part is part of stating the intention. Because for me, I learned a really, and I referenced a mentor I'd had in photography. I remember once he was so upset with me, and about me passing out flyers um, to uh, a poetry concert that I was kind of helping promote. And he was like, don't do that, like when you're with me. And we were at, not even a fancy place. I think we were like at the Savoy for breakfast one morning. And there was a couple of young people on our pay. And he said, look, he said, you haven't, and me and him just went to breakfast. It wasn't like I got dressed special for it. He said, look, man, if you're
Hmm.
going to pass out flyers to these people to convince them to go to where your event is, you need to be dressed just like they are. And it was a strong moment for me because it was one
Hmm.
of those moments where I had to get out of my head and out of my surroundings and what I was comfortable with and look at the reality of what he was telling me. And it had a lot to do, being 100% real, it had a lot to do with race. It had a lot to do with the status of America and you realizing that, you know what, there's a certain way that you're going to have to look and speak in order to make a certain demographic of people comfortable with you. And that was something that I didn't want to grow up into that. I wanted the world to be, hey, people should just accept me as I am. But that's not the reality of the world we live in. And I referenced that story because that was such a big grow up moment for me to realize my nails need to be completely cleaned out. Like something simple
Hmm.
as that. Like I have to present myself in a way to where, look, a person says, I want that person around. I need to be around that person. This person keeps them everything up. If they look at you from head to toe and they see that you take care of the details of your shoes all the way up to your hair, then they know that they can trust you with the minor details of their business or their or whatever service you're offering them, they know it's going to be top notch. And he used that little bitty teaching point to motivate me to know that that's how I'm going to say it more than anything. Doesn't matter that I had a quality product. And I remember that bled over into the confidence to be able to put my dream out there with boldness. Because if I'm not fully bold about my dream, if every time I pick up a camera, I could say, well, give me what you want. But I learned to, when I pick up my camera, that no, forget what you think about me or your appearances. My attitude is going to be one that tells you I'm worth $150 an hour.
Mhm.
Not going to blink. I'm not going to say
Mhm.
anything else. This is what I, yeah. And if you have that boldness, then people will be like, well, you must really be worth that. And uh, it's an important lesson, that I learned when it came to getting out my dreams then. And I shared that just to say that then I ran. I wish I could tell you that I went on and I charged the right amount and I did everything I was supposed to do. Nope. I did not want to stand up. I didn't want to change my ways. And so I changed my name. I did something else with my life, and I stuck that dream in a box. And now I'm opening that dream up again.
Mm.
But I wasn't mature enough at the time. But that lesson still carries me to this day. So there's a way and there's a demeanor that I know in which I have to carry myself when I'm selling my dream.
Um, you know, um, you're talking about what we're talking about makes me think about, you know, I have dreams, but I'm a lot older than you. I mean, I'm over 30 years older than you are. And at some point, there's that doubt in people. Well, am I too old to to live my dream? And our dreams sometimes change. I've shared before my first dream. I thought, oh, I'll be a doctor. Well, no, I didn't become a doctor, and I'm sort of glad I didn't. But that was my first thought uh, of a dream. But things change over time, and we have to accept that there are things in our lives that have taken us places, and it may not be the right time. The timing is everything. And it may not be the right time in our lives to move forward. Maybe we need more skills. Maybe we need the right people in our lives.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to mature. And at my age, I sometimes think my big dreams, okay, am I too old for my big dream? But when I'm with you, Drew, then I get energized. If we're doing something that energizes us, then most of the time we're at the right place. When I sometimes don't want to go to my office, I get there, but then I'm energized. So you have to think, what energizes you? And if you're doing something that doesn't energize you, then, and you know what that feels like. It feels like all of a sudden, oh, this feels good. I'm excited about this. This is great. Instead of, oh, I don't want to do that. That's horrible. I'm not looking forward to that. And when you're doing it, you're still not enjoying it.
Yeah.
Then that says, hey, wait a minute. You need to dig a little deeper and figure out, what am I doing and how am I spending my time, and is that energizing to me? It could be a time that we're needing to learn some things. And we both have been through those periods in our life, as have all of our listeners, if they think about it long enough, that sometimes there's a time that we're figuring out and learning and getting the resources and the skill sets we need to move forward. And those are some of the steps that we have to take in order to reach our dream.
Yeah. So I think that for me, just journaling, the suggestion that I would throw out to people is that journaling, blogging, doing whatever you have to do in the process to chronicle the things that happen. the emotions and the feelings that you have, so that you can be able to look back at where you were, and it helps you celebrate um, who you are now, who you will be. It'll help you say it out loud. Those are nice ways of taking the first step to saying it out loud. One of the things that we had talked about earlier in the show, as far as getting the dream out, um, we have the stages of maturing that we will go through, and becoming who we're supposed to be, and getting that dream out and allowing that dream to mature. Make sure you celebrate it. It's almost like a child to some degree. You know, you've got that pregnancy stage where it's just in you, and then once you get it out there, start, chronicling it. And here I am in 1 month into the dream, 2 months into it, 3 years, 4 years. Never let,
5 years.
yeah, yeah, and just never let it
Yeah.
die. Never let it die. So many people let their dreams die, and they just let things get away from them. And you don't want to be that person. You want to be the person who definitely gets his dream, who gets their dream out there the right way.
I think that this is going to lead us really a nice segue into our next show, which is going to be our third part about our dreams. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the steps that we need to take to actually reach that dream.
Yeah,
And so I'd like to encourage our listeners to, between now and then, the next time you hear our next show, to really write down, as Dru said, journal some things. Write down about your real dream.
yeah,
Just reach out there and reach into space, and let your mind just kind of flow, and dig back in time even, and see what it was maybe I thought about that I've put aside. And don't come to it from a place of fear about, well, I can't do that. Those negative statements will stop us in our tracks. Come to a place of love of yourself, for one, and loving yourself through this. And that that little child, everybody talks about their inner child. That inner child, that is the place sometimes of that fear of
yeah,
success. You've been told you can't do it. So I'd encourage you to, put on your big adult panties, as they say, and protect your little child, and not let that little child get trapped in that fear place, and get to loving that little child part of you. If if the opposite of where we're coming from is fear, that place is love. And if love is the answer to every question that you have, then what is the question? And answer it out of that place of love, and see where you go with that this week. And when we come back, then we can talk about the steps that we can actually take to actually reach that dream.
yeah. Sounds like a good show. So make sure you join us next week. Hopefully, Georgine, you'll have a good week this week, right, Gigi?
I'm going to have a great week this week,
There you go.
actually. I've been to yoga this morning already, and I'm having a great day. I've got my granddaughter with me, and we're going to go see some animals and maybe do a little horseback riding with a new friend. So we're going to have a great, great day, and I hope you guys do too.
Definitely will. All right.
Okay.
See you next week.
See you next week on This Life Matters.